In eastern Turkey, hidden among the Munzur mountains, lies a valley called Dersim, a name that means Silver Gate. For centuries, this land was home to Kurdish and Zaza communities who followed the Kızılbaş Alevi faith, a people who spoke their own language, kept their own traditions, and rarely bowed even to Ottoman central authority. Between 1937 and 1938, the newly founded Republic of Turkey sent an army into this valley. By the end of a campaign that lasted nearly 2 years, thousands of civilians would be dead, tens of thousands displaced, and the memory of an entire people rewritten in fire, in bullets, and in poison gas. This is the story of the Dersim massacre. Even under Ottoman rule, Dersim had never been fully controlled. Between 1876 and 1923, the region saw 11 separate armed rebellions. After the founding of the Republic, Ankara's vision did not change. One language, one nation, one identity. In that vision, there was no place for a Kurdish and Zaza speaking, Alevi, semi-autonomous tribal society like Dersim's. In 1934, the Turkish Resettlement Law gave the state sweeping power to forcibly relocate populations. In 1935, the Tunceli Law erased the name Dersim from the map. The region was renamed Tunceli, Turkish for bronze hand, a name meant to evoke the state's iron fist descending on the valley. The province was placed under direct military rule through the 4th Inspectorate General, governed by a single commander with sweeping judicial, military, and civilian authority. On November 1, 1936, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk told the Turkish Grand National Assembly that Dersim was the country's most important internal problem. The decision had already been made. At the center of this story stands one name, Seyit Riza. He was born around 1863 in the village of Lurtik in Dersim. He led the Heznan tribe, and as a member of the Okak lineage, he was believed by his community to descend from the family of the Prophet and was revered as a religious leader. To his people, he was never just a tribal chief. He was Dersim's peer, its spiritual elder. In March 1937, during the Kurdish Spring Festival of Newroz, tension broke into violence. In the Harsik Valley, a wooden bridge connecting the villages of Pa and Kamut was destroyed, and telephone lines were cut. Turkish authorities pointed to Seyit Riza as the man responsible. The state's response was immediate and disproportionate. The Air Force bombed his house. On May 4, 1937, the Council of Ministers issued a secret decision setting the framework for the campaign, the deportation of the population, the destruction of villages, and the killing of anyone allegedly armed within the designated rebellion zone. 25,000 troops were deployed. The 2nd Mobile Gendarmerie Battalion at Pulimur, the 3rd at Puller, the 9th at Mazgirt, and the Mobile Gendarmerie Regiment at Hozat all moved into position. By summer, the suppression of the uprising was considered largely complete. The region had also been bombed from the air. Hoping to stop the bloodshed, Seyit Riza sent a relative to negotiate with General Abdullah Alpdoğan. That intermediary was killed in the village of Sin on Alpdoğan's order. With no other recourse, Seyit Riza sent a desperate letter through his exiled friend Nuri Dersimi to the League of Nations and to the foreign ministries of Britain, France, and the United States. None of them responded. On September 10, 1937, Seyit Riza came to the government building in Erzincan province for what he believed would be peace talks. He was arrested on the spot. Seyit Riza was transferred to the headquarters of the General Inspectorate in Elazığ. İnsan Sabri Şarlayangil, who would later become Turkey's foreign minister, was assigned to organize the trial and the executions. The trial was little more than a legal formality. Under Turkish law at the time, the elderly could not be sentenced to death. To get around this, Seyit Riza's true age, believed to be over 80, was officially recorded as 75. By the same logic, his younger son, Riza Hüseyin, who was actually 17, had his age raised to 21 on the record because Turkish law also barred the execution of minors. The court handed down 11 death sentences. 4 were commuted to 30 years in prison on account of youth. 14 defendants were acquitted. That left 7 men condemned to die: Seyit Riza, his son Riza Hüseyin, tribal leader Hasan Ağa of the Şeyhanli tribe, Hüseyin Saidi, Fundik Ağa, Ali Ağa, and the son of Hasan Ibrahim. On the morning of November 15, 1937, gallows were erected in Bugday Square in Alezi. According to the testimony of the official who oversaw the execution, Seyit Riza, upon seeing the gallows, said simply, "You're going to hang me." The prosecutor asked if he wished to pray. He declined. Asked for his last words, he said, "I have 40 lira and a watch. Give them to my son." But that would not be possible, because the order of execution placed his son first. Riza Hüseyin was hanged before his father's eyes. Witnesses recall that, before mounting the gallows himself, Seyit Riza repeated a lament he had once spoken after losing another son years earlier: "I have lost the key to the mountains." Now he was losing his last one. When Seyit Riza's own turn came, the square was empty. The morning was cold, only the officials remained. But Seyit Riza spoke as if the square were filled with people, addressing the silence and the emptiness itself. In a powerful voice he cried out, "We are the children of Kerbala. We are innocent. This is shameful. This is oppression. This is murder." He was invoking the words spoken by Imam Hussein at Kerbala, facing death, that whatever is built on oppression ends in ruin. According to witnesses, Seyit Riza placed the rope around his own neck and kicked away the chair himself, carrying out his own execution. His composure left even the officials present visibly shaken. The bodies were taken down from the gallows, paraded through the streets of Alezi for the public to see, and then burned. The location of their graves remains unknown to this day. Seyit Riza's execution did not end the resistance. In January 1938, with the approval of Prime Minister Sil Bayar, a new operation began. On June 29, 1938, Bayar told Parliament the goal plainly: to eradicate the Dersim problem once and for all. In June 1938, troops began moving into the parts of central Dersim, between Püler, Dagdeviren, and Peh, that had not yet surrendered. On August 10, 1938, a large-scale cleansing and combing operation began. This was no longer a counterinsurgency campaign. According to the Army's own internal reports, it had become common practice for troops escorting deportation trains to kill anyone unable to keep walking. The number of weapons officially confiscated was only 1,019. The number of people killed or arrested reached 7,954. That gap alone tells the story. The overwhelming majority of victims were unarmed. According to the General Staff's own summary, the total number of soldiers killed during the entire 1938 operation was only 33. According to the testimony of Kurdish historian Nuri Dersimi, tribesmen were shot dead even after surrendering. Women and children were locked inside hay sheds, which were then set on fire. Historian Christian Gerlach has estimated that even after the uprising had been crushed, the Turkish army went on to massacre 30,000 Kurds. One of the darkest allegations surrounding Dersim concerns the use of poison gas. Seyit Riza himself, along with other witnesses from Dersim, claimed that the Turkish Air Force had bombed the region with toxic gas. Sabiha Gökçen, Ataturk's adopted daughter and Turkey's first female combat pilot, personally took part in the operations. She would later deny in her memoirs that gas had been used. But researchers have documented that the state ordered 20 tons of chemical agents, described in records as chloracetophenon, iperit, and so on, for use in the campaign. Dutch Kurdish historian Umit Ungur has stated that he found records in the Turkish archives showing that Zyklon B had been ordered from Nazi Germany, the same gas later used at Auschwitz during the Second World War. A letter written by former Prime Minister Rafiq Saydam in 1942, 4 years after the events, has been documented, referencing the consequences of the punishment and deportation operation. What happened in Dersim was not only a military campaign, it was a systematic policy of cultural erasure. On the order of Interior Minister Shukru Kaya, boys and girls from Dersim were sent to boarding schools outside the region. There they were to be Turkified, and upon graduation, married off to one another. Girls were to be Turkified first, on the theory that women, having less contact with the outside world, could not pass Turkish identity onto their children unless transformed themselves. In September 1937, the Alevi Girls Institute was established with the explicit goal of raising Turkish women out of Kurdish girls. According to official figures, more than 70,000 people were forcibly relocated to western provinces such as Manizil, Denizli, Eskişehir, and Balıkesir. The name Dersim was erased from the map. Speaking Kurdish or Zaza was forbidden. Alevi shrines and cultural monuments were destroyed. To this day, there is no settled agreement on how many people died in Dersim because most of the Turkish state's archives on the operation remain classified. According to the official report of the 4th Inspectorate General, 13,160 people were killed by the Turkish army, and 11,818 were deported. Some sources state that in 1937 alone, 737 people, most of them children, were killed, with another 868 killed in 1938. These figures represent the lowest end of the official record, but independent historians and Kurdish sources give far higher numbers. Dutch historian Martin van Bruinessen and historian Christian Gerlach have each estimated the death toll at between 20,000 and 30,000. Several Kurdish institutes and researchers put the number as high as 50,000 to 70,000. This gap is not just a matter of statistics, it reflects a deliberate policy of denial, since the core archives have never been open to independent researchers. What is clear is this: the ratio between the number of weapons confiscated and the number of people killed shows that this was not a counterinsurgency operation against armed rebels. It was the mass punishment of a civilian population. Behind this campaign stood a chain of command. President Mustafa Kemal Ataturk had personally described the operation as Turkey's most important internal matter. In the 1990s, Turkish Army General Osman Pamukoğlu stated publicly that the order for the Dersim operation had come directly from Ataturk. Prime Minister İsmet İnönü and his successor Celal Bayar oversaw the campaign politically. Interior Minister Shukru Kaya was the architect of the deportation and assimilation policies. General Abdullah Alp Doğan, as 4th Inspector General, held supreme military and administrative authority over the region. İnsan Sabri Salayangil, later to become Turkey's foreign minister, personally organized the execution of Seyit Riza and his companions. Pilot Sabiha Gökçen took part in the bombing operations. General Muhsin Batur was among the commanders who took part in the campaign. Years later, in his memoirs, he admitted he preferred not to speak about that period of his life. After the campaign ended, the name Dersim could barely be spoken aloud for years. For decades, the state described these events as a counterinsurgency operation or a civilizing campaign. Survivors, out of fear, chose silence. On November 23, 2011, then Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan issued a formal apology, describing the Dersim events as one of the most tragic events of our near history. But that apology did not meet Alevi organizations' demands for official recognition of their houses of worship. The demand to restore the name Dersim was also rejected. No financial compensation was ever paid to the victims' families. For many, the apology was seen not as genuine accountability, but as a political gesture. Today, at the foot of the Munzur Mountains, people gather every year on May 4th. The descendants of those who hid in caves, who fled, who survived, still carry candles, still try to speak a past whose name was once forbidden. The words Seyit Riza cried out on the gallows nearly 90 years ago still echo in Dersim's conscience. We are the children of Kerbala. We are innocent. This is shameful. This is oppression. This is murder.